Would you like some tips to help you master masking? Then stick around because I've got 5 ideas to share, as well as a bonus quick fix for a card making mistake that you might need one day. Masking is a fabulous technique to either create a scene or build a pattern and give you layers or the look of dimension without adding actual layers. And my first tip is to plan out your design. Create a sketch. This is going to make it easy to see which images need to be in the forefront. So the images at the front are the ones that you need to stamp first and mask. And we're going to be using a few different masking techniques today. I'm going to walk you through all of them. And one of the best things about masking is you are not limited by the design on the sets that you're using. You can use any mix of products that you want. You can use multiple sets of stamps. You can use stencils or even dies to help you create your very own scene or image. And full disclosure, I received these adorable stamps from Alex Syberia Designs to promote this release. This is part of a video hop which has a ton of inspiration. And to find out how you can win and who's next on the hop, click in the description below this video. My next tip is to use a sticky grid mat or a sticky mat. This is going to help hold your cardstock in place, especially if you're going to be doing some ink blending or using stencils. There are other ways that you can hold stencils in place. You can simply tape them down or use a magnetic mat with some magnets, or you could even use some temporary adhesive spray to hold it in place. So next I'm working out where I want my images to be. And these are the ones that I need to mask because these are the ones that are going to be in the front of my design. And this is my next tip. Use a stamp positioner if you have one. They are not essential. You can simply use an acrylic block and have the same results. But when you are stamping, particularly if you're using a thicker cardstock for the masking, or if you've got a stencil like I have here, stamps do not give the best impression against the edge of the stencil. So it's time to make a mask. I'm using masking paper, which is my next tip, because it is so easy to use, it's an affordable tool, and a little goes a long way. You can also reuse your masks, and I store them on the packaging of the stamps. But you can also use copy paper or post-it notes or even scrap cardstock. And I've got a bonus tip here for you. When you're fussy cutting a mask, make sure to cut it just on or inside the stamp line. This means that when the image is stamped over top of the mask, the stamp lines will touch, and this is going to give your scene or image a seamless finished result. I also like to remove any excess ink off my stencils. Because they're plastic, I can accidentally pick the ink up on my fingers or on the blending tools and get a mix that I'm not going to be happy with. And my next tip is glue. If you do use glue to hold down some copy paper that's cut into a mask or on a stencil, make sure it's very low tack or a repositionable one, and don't leave it in place too long because some glues get stronger over time. Nothing is more frustrating. I've had it happen to me where when I've removed the mask, it's torn the paper away. Masking can get a little complicated, especially when you're doing multiple layers, and when you get it wrong, it's so frustrating. So do take the time to work out which layer needs to be in what order. I'm doing some double masking here with a piece of post-it tape, and I've cut some hills out of the tape, and I've kept the other portion of the tape aside, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm also using post-it notes. These are a really quick, easy way to mask off a section, especially if you want a straight edge, and they can be reused. I always reuse them until they don't stick anymore or there's too much ink on them. Then I'm worried that it might blend with the colors that I'm going to use. So here you can see I'm masking with the stencil to create these windows and using a blending tool to add the ink. But this double layer of masking at the bottom, where I've got the piglet masked as well as the hill, just adds an extra detail to these little rectangles of color. To keep my colours light, I'm using a larger ink blending tool, and it really starts to get fun when you peel the masks away. So I did say I needed to keep the other piece of that post-it note tape, and that just gives me the reverse of the hill so that I can ink blend different colours here in this rectangle. And because I'm using the large blending tool, I did need to add those post-it notes again to protect my surface area. Right, so the big reveal, and the piglets are still white beneath that masking paper. So imagine if you masked an image such as this, but then used a stamp to create a stamped background, or added more images beside each other, and as you mask them, create a little scene of critters. You can also ink blend with a stencil over top and do some double stencil masking. You can add single flowers and leaves, mask them, and create a beautiful big bouquet if you prefer. Masking is also a great technique to alter sentiments. You can mask off a section of a sentiment so that you only stamp the portion that you want. You can mask it off and stamp one sentiment in multiple colours. This works particularly well if you have a stamp positioning tool. One of my favourite things to do is to create my own pattern background using strips of masking paper. And another thing I mask is when I want to protect a sentiment or an image when I'm splattering ink on a project. There are many different options, and a great way to combine products that you have in your stash to get a totally different look and something that's a lot of fun. You can make your masked scenes and images as complex or as simple as you like. Like I said, today's is quite a simple design. So I'm stamping right up against the edge of a stencil here, and I can't get the best impression right at that very edge. So what I do is I stamp it as best I can and then come and fill in the rest of the area using a black fine line marker. And I knew that I'd be able to do this because I used black ink. But if you have coordinating inks and markers or something that you can use, you can also do this with any colour that you have. And here's my bonus tip, because I made a mistake. I thought I was going to be able to use the die after I'd done all my creating, but no. So I worked around this by die cutting some tracing paper, and it's hard for you to see because it has that writing on there. But I also die cut a second piece of white cardstock. I'm going to attach the two of these together and then line them up over top of my images that I've prepared. I could have come in and cut these images out into the rectangles and then adhered them on top, but I wanted to keep this portion as one layer. So I lined everything up and then joined those two pieces of cardstock together, so the outer edge and the main piece that I've been working on. And this gives me, crossed fingers, the exact placement I need to run this through my die cutting machine. Because I've been able to resit that die almost like a jigsaw puzzle piece into that other outside die cut piece. And here's the finished result. I think it lined up pretty well. And I did add some dimension to this card by popping up the pig and the panel. I hope that you enjoyed today's tips to master the art of masking, and let me know in the comments below if you're going to try any of these techniques. And if you enjoyed today's video, please click on the thumbs up button, and if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? It's totally free. I look forward to seeing you again here real soon. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.